Started here. And so welcome to today's Orchestra Careers event, all about audience development, which is kind of a catch-all for all things marketing, communications, PR, fundraising. I mean, really, it's building our community around our organizations. So I've got some fabulous professionals joining us today who you'll get to meet here. And we're going to talk a little bit about just what these roles look like at our organizations, what the state of the industry is kind of grappling with these days, and how you can get on the path if this is work that you're interested in. So we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. I'm Sonia Thomes, and I'm the Vice President and General Manager at the Nashville Symphony by day, and by night and weekend I create Orchestra Careers content and just enjoy the community so much. So without further ado, let's do some introductions. Stephanie, you're first box on my screen, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. I'm Stephanie Stallings. I'm currently the Executive Director for the Flagstaff Symphony Orchestra in Flagstaff, Arizona. And with my apologies today, because I have COVID, but I'm doing my best to stay coherent. So, yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you. Thank you. Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Atkins. I'm currently serving as the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Palm Beach Symphony in Palm Beach, Florida. I've been in the arts admin field for the past 12 years, I believe. I've done everything from arts like management, like executive director, as well as marketing, as well as just artistic operations and education and all of it. So I have a lot of experience and landed in a marketing position specifically just a few months ago. So I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. Aubrey.
Hey everyone, Aubrey Bergauer. I definitely know some friendly, familiar faces. So good to see you again. Christian, good to see you. I haven't seen you since my summer up level last summer. So I'm smiling seeing your face right now. The quick bio for me, a lot of people know me from when I was executive director of the California Symphony, and we did a lot of audience development work there. But before that, I worked in Seattle at the major institutions there, at Seattle Symphony and Fundraising, at Seattle Opera and Marketing, at the Bumbershoot Music and Arts Festival as the #2 over all those revenue streams. And then for the last almost 4 years now, it's kind of hard to believe it's been 4 years since I left California Symphony, and have been on my own trying to help more organizations grow their audiences, become more relevant to their communities as a freelance independent consultant.
Excellent. Well, part of what we like to do with our panels is share the stories of our beginnings in this industry. I studied oboe and was planning to be in an orchestra, went to 6 years of music school with that plan in mind. But in the end, I found myself at an internship in operations at the National Symphony at the Kennedy Center, and it opened my eyes to, oh, there's people that work backstage. And that's where I've been the last 18 years, is working in operations. So Stephanie, I'll toss it back to you. Can you tell us a little bit about what did you study in college? What did you think you were going to do? And what was the beginnings of your path towards where you are now?
Yeah, it's been a sort of twisty-turny path for me. I started my artistic life as a musician too, as a pianist. I did an undergraduate degree in piano performance, and then I thought it would be a good idea to go and do 2 graduate degrees in musicology. I always thought I would be a college professor. That's what I wanted to do. Both my parents were educators. My dad was a college professor of science education. It's what I knew. But then also throughout college and even into graduate school, my summer jobs were always in the box office at Brevard Music Center in North Carolina. And so that was my entree into arts admin and customer service, because I definitely picked up a lot of good skills there. My favorite story is when Kathleen Battle just didn't show up to her performance, for which we had sold 1,600 tickets. And I ended up trying to maintain my calm and cool, collected demeanor when patrons were yelling in my face and threatening to sue me personally if I didn't give them a refund, which of course I couldn't at that moment. But So that was an education in itself. And then I graduated out of musicology in 2009, which was just a dismal year for that. It's the height of the economic recession. I think there were only like 17 or 18 jobs in musicology that year, nationwide. So I moved to DC and I started working 2 kind of starter admin jobs in DC that ended up being really pretty influential to my path. So I was working simultaneously in telemarketing for the National Symphony, which was interesting because it was located in the Kennedy Center, but it was like a telemarketing firm that did this for the National Symphony. So I wasn't an employee of the National Symphony, but it was this, separate entity, and got some really great stories about that too. And then also in the box office at Folger Theater, which is this Shakespearean theater in DC. Which was a job I loved because at 3 o'clock every day, all the employees were encouraged to go have tea in the tea room because it was tea time. Very British. So then I ended up moving to Los Angeles, where I connected with emerging arts leaders, and they hired me as their first managing director. And then meanwhile, I did a really enjoyable certificate in fundraising at UCLA. So that was kind of my first foray out of ticketing, sales, and marketing, and into fundraising and grants management through emerging arts leaders. And then eventually I moved into a job at the LA County Arts Commission doing research and evaluation for their public programs. Then husband got a job teaching as assistant professor in Flagstaff at Northern Arizona University. And so I ended up teaching arts and cultural management here for a few years. And then when COVID hit, the university eliminated a bunch of positions, including mine. And that's how I kind of fell into my current job with the symphony, because I had previously served on the symphony board for about 3 years. And that's where I am now.
Great, great. So Julia, how about you? What did you study in school? What did you think was going to happen, and what really happened?
Well, similar to Stephanie, I had a very twisty, windy road, and that road is still very windy to this day. I started out as a musician as well. I got my bachelor's and my master's degrees in clarinet performance. Thought I was going to become a full-time performing musician, playing clarinet and, whatever big name orchestra that you can think of. It was during my master's degree at Florida State University that I realized I didn't want to be on the audition circuit, going after audition after audition after audition, and then not getting a job. And I kind of was in this 2-year performance degree feeling a little bit lost. And I remembered at Florida State in the College of Music there was an arts admin degree program. And so part of my performance degree during the time, I had to have at least one elective that had nothing to do with my performance arena. So I took the Intro to Arts Administration class while I was there. And because I took that class, I was like, oh, there's this whole new world out here that no one ever told me about, because I was just always like in the practice room or in rehearsals and never thought for a second about the arts admin aspect of running these organizations. And so I remembered sitting down with the program director at the time, and I said, I'm really interested in arts admin. Should I consider getting a degree in arts admin? Is that going to help me get a job? Like, I really don't want to go the performance route anymore. I love playing. I still love playing, but it's just not a full-time career for me. And she was like, no, don't bother getting another degree. Like, just finish your performance degree and just get experience. And so I was volunteering my time on campus, like ushering for concerts, working for the box office, just trying to get any type of experience I could. And then when my master's was kind of coming to a close, I just started applying to arts admin jobs. I think I ended up applying to like 35 or 40 jobs. Out of those 35 or 40 jobs, I only got 3 interviews. And only 2 of them did I make it to the final round in person. And so then one of them was the one that I ended up getting. So I became the orchestra personnel and marketing manager at the Fayetteville Symphony Orchestra in North Carolina after my master's. And so that was like a weird mishmash of a job. Like you don't normally see personnel manager and marketing smashed together, but because it was a very small budget orchestra, I was one of 3 full-time staff. So I was wearing a lot of hats. So I was working that for about 3 years. Then I got promoted to director of artistic operations and marketing. And that just encompassed everything from personnel manager. I was the music librarian. I was the education manager running our youth orchestra. And then I was also doing all the marketing for the organization. It was a lot, and I experienced a lot and learned a lot. At the end of that, like I was there for about 5 years total. And I don't really remember how I decided this, but I just decided I needed yet another degree to prove myself in the field. So I went back to Florida State and got a PhD in arts administration, which I just finished last year. During that time, I was working for the Tallahassee Symphony Orchestra. I was their patron services coordinator and their box office manager. So I was helping them with more of like the customer service end of things. And then during the pandemic, obviously everything shut down, but my previous organization in Fayetteville lost all of their staff. And basically the organization was on like the brink of collapse. And they called me up and they said, would you be interested in serving as interim executive director because you have all of this institutional knowledge? And I said, sure, why not? I thought that it would be a great experience. It was probably the hardest 2 years of my life because I was trying to finish a doctorate and write a dissertation while trying to rebuild an organization single-handedly with no staff, and try to get it back on its feet in the middle of a pandemic. So I hired new staff. I was training them, just trying to get them back on their feet. Realized that I really did not like being an executive director. I do not like fundraising. So I left that job, and yeah, I was actually unemployed for a couple of months, living back home with my parents. And then I ended up getting this job here in Palm Beach as the marketing and communications manager back in October of 2022. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. So like I said, very windy road.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, very much so. Aubrey, so what did you study in school? What did you think you were going to do? And you touched on kind of a little bit of the stepping stones of your path, but anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's funny that so many of us are saying windy road, because I literally said to Julia on Thursday, I feel like it's been a bit of a windy road. So I don't know. I think we all have a version of that, and that is okay. I think this like version of a straight path is kind of bogus anymore. But anyways, okay, so let's see here. I realized in high school that I wanted to be in arts management, which is rare, especially among, oh my God, I was gonna say among my generation. That sounds so like old and stuffy, but we didn't have like arts administration programs the same way at the, in the early 2000s as we do now. So all to say, I remember I went to a school where I could double major in performance as well as business. And even I played the tuba, by the way, did not want to be a professional tuba player, even though I enjoyed playing it. But anyways, wanted to be on the admin side. So I remember even my teacher being like, why do you want to double major? And in my head, I was like, there are other jobs besides sitting at the back of the orchestra playing my tuba. Anyways, just to share how like I feel like the landscape has changed for the positive. So did the double major, as I mentioned. First job was Seattle Symphony. So my partner at the time already had a job in Seattle, and so I followed love and thought, all right, let's try to land. And I feel very lucky. I remember somehow I got my foot in the door at Seattle Symphony, and I remember them saying like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, literally any job you have available, I will do. Like, I just didn't know. And so I think that's another way things have changed. Like, I feel like every student I meet these days has a much better sense of at least the types of roles. And I was like, I have no idea if I like operations more than fundraising or vice versa, or, So anyways, they had an entry-level opening in the development department, and actually thinking back, I think for like 2 months they brought me on as an intern, and I was just sort of like helping as many different people as I could, and I was really grateful for that. And then after that, they had this opening in the development department, and they were like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, I want a job, so yes, I do. And so in hindsight, though, I say all this to say that was a really great first job, and that the job itself was donor stewardship. So I was planning all the donor events for every type of donor, and so it was a real crash course in every type of donor, from low-level individuals to major gifts to corporations, foundations, planned giving. And so at the age of 22, I was getting this more than a snapshot, just a real glimpse at like the whole spectrum of giving and who supports us at our organizations. And after a few months, they learned I had good writing skills, so that like moved more into helping assist with like some major gift proposals and things like that. So anyways, as a first gig, it really, really taught me a lot that I just had not learned in school. So there was that. Then after a year or so at the Symphony is when the Seattle Opera called and said, "We want somebody to run our young patrons group. It's in the marketing department. We see all your event planning experience. Are you interested?" And at the time, I thought, yes, if I want to be an executive director someday, I've got a little bit of fundraising experience. Now let me get some marketing experience. I get to work with younger patrons than the donors, who definitely tend to skew a bit older. And like I said, age 23 or something at the time. So that was very appealing, to work with people closer to my age. Their young patrons group had a junior board of directors. So in my mind, as I was like checking off, like, what do I need to do to be an ED someday? I thought, yeah, working with a board, even a junior board, felt like some skills I should develop. So all those things, I decided to take the job and go over there. And that ended up being there for 6 years. And it was, what ended up happening, aside from just like audience development in terms of Young Patrons Club and things like that, it was also a time when like digital marketing was coming into the fold. The iPhone came out my first year working there. And so then I became like the kid in the office being like, "Hey guys, I really think I should actually, first it was, I think I should start a Facebook page for us, like this is like, now it feels like ancient history probably, but they were like, why, and like going through those battles back then of like really trying to manage up and pitch my ideas up and get buy-in. And anyway, it's just a whole lesson. And then like, fast forward another few months, "Hey guys, I think we could spend a lot less money and market to people digitally." "What is that, Aubrey?" And like, there we go again, trying to explain and get buy-in and all these kind of things. So I just say that it was a really interesting time. And so my role changed quite a bit. Like audience development expanded so much during those 6 years, between just like, it's run the Young Patrons Club, plan the discounts and the next sale we're going to run in the marketing team, and to like more marketing strategy and how to use digital. And anyway, it's just a really interesting time. Oh yeah. "Hey guys, I think we should have a mobile friendly website. Isn't there an app for that?" Like, I remember I was like, "We don't need an app, we need a mobile friendly website." Anyways, I could go on and on. It's just a really interesting time. And then, as I mentioned, I went on to the Bumbershoot Music and Arts Festival, hired as marketing director. It was career advancement, a more senior role than I wanted, multidiscipline, multi-genre. And then what I learned there is that it's not that different. Selling tickets to a festival, selling tickets to an opera company, selling tickets to a symphony, it's all selling tickets. Raising money, it's all pretty much raising money. So that in itself was a lesson. And I did that for 3 years. And then that brings us to 2014. A partner got a job down in San Francisco. So I thought, great, this is another city that has like wonderful cultural options. Let me start looking. And I had been interviewing at different, like the main arts organization, San Francisco Symphony Opera, and for sort of mid-level management roles. And then this little regional orchestra called and said, "We hear you might be moving here. We're looking for an executive director." And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, do I go to such a smaller budget? What do I do? And I learned that was a real snotty attitude, actually. And the quality of musicians was exceptionally high. They're all first call subs for San Francisco Symphony, principal clarinet was third clarinet there, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, Aubrey, you had everything wrong in your head about smaller, regional, like just, anyways, real lesson there for me too. But all to say, I realized, you know what? I talked a lot about the what at these organizations, and hinted at some of the challenges, getting buy-in for digital, for example, things like that, and learning a lot about audience development in those roles. I realized, I can come here and then I get the seniority I want. I get that first executive director gig. I get to decide how we're doing this. And this is going to be my testing ground where I get to put all these ideas I've been accumulating and trying to execute as my scope and role would allow at these other institutions, but I really get to bring it all together. And so, I took the job, and over the 5 years there, we doubled the audience, nearly quadrupled the donor base, did a lot of user experience research, just all kinds of things that I'm known for now. And I just share all that to say that, I don't know, big organization, small organization, I think there's so many learnings at all of the above. And as I said at the top, then the last 4 years almost now has been me trying to share what I've learned with more organizations, share this info more broadly, making an impact beyond one organization. So anyways, that's a lot, but that's my version of the windy road story.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing. I just have a couple questions for the panelists. So attendees, please, feel free to drop questions into the chat, or we'll have plenty of time for you all to ask your questions. But really just kind of top level, one of the questions I have is, what advantage do orchestras have? Like, what is the easiest thing about developing an audience for an orchestra? Anyone can jump in.
I'll jump in. I think, honestly, it's just an experience that makes a lot of people really happy. I think there's a lot of surprise and delight that's inherent in a live orchestral performance. Also, many parents really want their kids exposed to exactly the kind of high quality live music that orchestras offer. But the thing that I really love is there's also a lot of room to really thwart people's negative expectations. That's maybe not the best way of putting it, but a lot of people carry around in their mind the idea that the orchestra is this elitist, Western European art form. And I think that's changing. And I love delighting people when they come to see the orchestra for the first time. And they were like, I really liked that. I never thought I would like going to hear a symphony orchestra, but I really liked that. So those are some advantages I think we have in our favor.
Mm-hmm. Julia, how about you? Anything that you're like, I don't know, just what gives you just that first footing in marketing an orchestra? What is the easiest way to start?
For me, it's reminding myself that at the end of the day, we are providing a form of entertainment, kind of similar to what Stephanie was saying. If you peel back all the layers of everything that an orchestra does, at the end of the day, what we provide is a form of entertainment. And yes, there are educational components to that as well. But as a marketer, that's like the best way for me to remind myself that we are a form of entertainment for people, for better or for worse. And that, people are choosing to spend their leisurely time to come and experience something with us. And we want to make that a great experience for them. And I think also just putting yourself in the mind of your audience as well. It's not about me, Julia, the marketer, trying to determine what I think is best for my audience. It's me trying to actually think of, or to ask even my audience, what do they want from us? And each community is going to be different. Having worked at several different orchestras now, they're vastly different communities that I've lived in. And it's really trying to put your mindset in that as well. And I hate to say it like this, but I can't think of a better word, but almost leaving your musician mind at the door. Like you can't be a musician marketing to an audience, because I just had this, actually, I just told Aubrey this the other day, like we can't market the fact that we just had Joshua Bell here in Palm Beach, which I'm sure you all know. And one of my teammates said that they really wanted to market the fact that he's playing his own cadenza. Great. I would love to, but 99.9% of the audience here in Palm Beach County do not know what a cadenza is. And I mean, it's reality. And so for me, it's trying to also make it accessible, and to not, I'm blanking on the word, but not like placing, that kind of mentality onto our audience, but just trying to put my mindset into them, and leaving the fact that, yes, I'm a musician and I've learned all of these fancy, cool things, but that can help in a way, but I need to make it accessible to the people here. So that those are kind of the two things that I would say based on my experience.
Sounds like there's a lot of entry points, a lot of potential for a lot of different ways people can, come and engage with an orchestra. Aubrey, so what about you? What do you just love about marketing orchestras?
Oh, man. Love is different than easy. I will say that.
Okay,
I feel like,
okay.
to be honest, like I really appreciate Stephanie and Julia's answers, because when you first sent through the question, what do we think is easy? My original reaction was, ugh. I do not know. I do not know what's easy. I think it's very difficult work, actually, but I love it. So these things can coexist. So I love the challenge, maybe. But I will say, what I do say, for anybody who's seen any of my online videos or anything like that, I'm constantly saying the product is what we do best. We have such exceptionally talented musicians, such wonderful products. Stephanie, you said it so well, of we do get to delight people with that. And so it was a really nice reminder of so maybe that's what's easy. We're selling something that's good. Inherently the core of what we do is so good because we've been working on that for hundreds of years as an industry. So how about that as an answer?
Yeah, I think so. We've just love orchestra. We're all musicians on the panelist here, and for me, that's what has kept me in this business this long. Is especially coming out of the pandemic, I love orchestras, and I think they need to be around for a really long time. And so, and I've heard you talk about it, Aubrey, we don't need to change. There's a lot we don't need to change about just presenting this amazing art form. And then, of course, there's a lot of challenges. So that's my next question. So what are the challenges of developing an audience for an orchestra? Aubrey, I'll just throw it back to you and we can go back around.
Yeah, I think, to pick up right where we were leaving off, it's not to say we don't need to make any changes with the product. Representation is a huge one, things like that. We have work to do there, but it's not the biggest thing that needs to change. We tend to, as an industry, over-index on changing the product. And so that's why I tend to not think that it's just not our silver bullet solution to change the programming. And then audiences come for decades now. That's not proven true. So instead, I would say the challenge is I tend to say everything tangential to the product. What's the customer experience? Everything from to this day, not everybody's website works that well on mobile. Come on, folks. If it's hard to buy a ticket, we sell less tickets. It's not rocket science, right? So there's things like that are tangential. Then to Julia's point, what she was saying, the words we use when we write all of our materials we are music majors, then it's really hard for people who don't have that background to understand what we're selling. And other ways to say that from user experience research I've done is it's unwelcoming, it's intimidating, it's off-putting, it's scary. Well, these are words we don't want associated with what we're trying to sell, right? So those are the challenges, is really, Julia said it very nicely, trying to, I can't remember if you've used the word empathy or putting yourselves in the mindset of the customer, leaving the music set at the door. I like that actually quite a bit, because that's hard work for us. We all have that training. So I think it's very difficult to say, there's a bias. It's called hindsight bias. We forget what it's like to not know something. And so that is a challenge for us marketers. But anyways, everything tangential to the experience, I would say that's what gets into the challenge of and audience development. And retention, sorry, that's the other thing. Experience and retention, I would say, are the two biggest ones. Getting people to come back and become loyal.
Stephanie, how about you? What have been some of the biggest challenges you've encountered developing the audience?
You know, that idea that if you're a cultured person, you must be a symphony goer is just not so much part of our collective experience anymore as it was in generations past. I'm reminded of some of Aubrey's Orchestra X research from a few years ago, where this kind of youngish focus group member said, and I'm paraphrasing, but said something like I expected a really cultured environment when I walked into the hall, but when I looked around and saw mostly white people, it felt distinctly uncultured. And so there's still those biases and things that we constantly have to be working against as marketers, that are just kind of an inherent part of the experience. Those things are changing, obviously, and they're changing for the better. And the whole experience, I think, overall in the past, I don't know, decades has gotten a lot more, there's a lot more representation. There's on the orchestra, in the orchestra, on the orchestra board. I've seen the way that that's played out in my community, and it's really wonderful to see. But it's still a challenge, right? It's still a challenge to present an orchestra as community-based and to convince outsiders that it's an experience that they really might enjoy. Here in Flagstaff, a large percentage of the population in the greater Flagstaff area, we're surrounded like by reservations. And so that challenge of inviting those people into the concert hall when they might have absolutely nothing to want to do with it. I had a donor approach me a few weeks ago, and he said, because we do, like most orchestras, we do like the blind auditions, with the screen and everything. He said, well, I want to see more Native Americans in your orchestra. Like, I'm willing to sponsor their chair, just find them and I'll pay for, and it's not like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I would love to see that too, obviously. It is a pipeline issue. And he's like, yeah, I understand that. Talk to the conductor, he'll make it happen. And so I'm just going off on a tangent, but those are some of the challenges that I've seen here.
Julia, how about you?
Well, I'd have to agree with both Aubrey and Stephanie on what they both said in terms of challenges. I would probably also add some of the challenges with marketing and audience development sometimes happen internally in the organizations as well, depending on the type of organization you're in. Now, this isn't saying it's for every single one, but I think that there's still a lot of the traditional mindset of this is the repertoire we play and this is how it needs to be, and we're just going to bring in these guest artists, these conductors, and marketers just make it happen, and not a lot of talk or conversation internally around what maybe needs to happen to become more community centric. And I think that there are a lot of orchestras and arts organizations that are now starting to do that. But I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. I know for me personally, I find a lot of roadblocks in my position, even here, and my prior positions, of just trying to make even just content more community centric. And sometimes it's, there's a lot of pushback because I'm changing the way, simple things like just how I introduce a piece of music, and maybe it's not the way that musicologist might write it, right? Or just it may not be the traditional way we talk about it. And so I think there's a lot of insecurities there because it's different and it's new, and it's a change. And I think that too has held this industry back for decades. And I think that it's still kind of happening behind the scenes, and you're not going to necessarily notice it unless you're actually in the organization itself trying to push some of those changes. And so I know for me personally, at least, that can be a big challenge as a marketer, is trying to do what and think is maybe best, or just trying to even test something to see if it works in the community, but getting that pushback internally, and just trying to move forward with that. So I know that those can be challenges as well.
So one of the things I like to do with these events, especially with, all the expertise on this panel, is just give our next generation of leaders who are here on the call and also will watch this later. A lot of what I like to do is try to just get them that very next step that they could take. I'm so inspired by our soon-to-be colleagues and their just eagerness to join us in the industry, but also to be really ready by graduation so they can just seamlessly transition to that first professional job. So what are some things now in 2023 that skills or experiences that you think that someone looking for their first job in this area should be thinking about or pursuing? What do you think would be something they could focus on?
I have two things coming to mind. One, some of the challenges Julia described with internal, call it politics, call it company culture, that's really real and pretty pervasive in our industry. And I'm not saying this to throw shade or hate on any organization. I'm just trying to say that because we are multi-generational staffs, I think that's part of the reason why there really is a difference in opinion. And somebody wants Joshua Bell's cadenza, and then somebody else is saying, maybe not everybody knows that word, right? And so that tension, I think, it definitely exists, like I said, pretty pervasively. So what that means is for when you enter the industry, I was really bad about this when I started. I was like, when I felt like I was fighting, why are we starting a Facebook? Let's start a Facebook page. Had to learn how to make the case for my ideas is what I'm trying to say. So I think the earlier we can get better at that in our careers, the less pain we will feel personally for things that we believe in and want to, because the assumption I'm making is that we all want to push the field forward. And so I think for somebody just entering, learning, this is why I became, in many ways, why I became so data driven. Oh, I can show stats as to how when somebody clicks on this, whether it's the Facebook page or the digital ad or whatever, oh, then they can go to our website, or whatever. I was able to start really supporting my ideas. So if that's the challenge, how do you manage up? Then part of the solution is not just say, here's what I think, it's to say, here's why I think that. Maybe I'll just leave it at that piece of advice, and then we can come back to more if we want.
Yeah, that curiosity is really healthy, and we shouldn't ever lose that, right? And so, but there's, with that multi-generation workplace, there's a lot of knowledge, but also sometimes we just, what did you say? Hindsight
Bias. We forget what it's like to not know something.
I'm 41 now, and it's easy. I work with a lot, the generation is reporting to me, that's next behind me. And so, I have to really make sure that I'm not forgetting what it was like to have that first job or not to be in charge of anybody. And then likewise, the next step up from me, the C-suite that is the generation I've learned from, how do we continually all adopt that curiosity, but also be ready to put our case on the table and have that courage to do that with that backup, with the backup of the research that we've done. I think that is a never-ending pursuit for sure.
Yeah, once we develop that skill, it serves us for a long, long time. So that's good news. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Stephanie and Julia, you've both had lots of different types of jobs that have put you on the path. Are there any kind of first jobs or first experiences that you feel like no one should underestimate the impact it can have on the skill set that you could be building or the network you could be growing?
I'll jump in and say that no one should underestimate the impact of Excel. And I say this because I was never good at math. I was never good at statistics. I was a piano performance major, not mostly, but also because I didn't have to take calculus and all that stuff. It wasn't required of me then. But my supervisor at the LA County Arts Commission advised me to make Excel my best friend. And I'm riffing off of something that Aubrey said too. Part of getting your ideas across, especially if they're data-based, is letting the data make the case for you. So like, whether you prefer Excel, or now I use Airtable for a lot of things because I'm really obsessed with it, but in general, just getting really comfortable and at home with collecting, cleaning, manipulating, and analyzing whatever data you have, and which sounds really basic probably to a lot of people, but I think you'll be surprised at how much decision making is not data driven in our industry. It's just kind of based on somebody's gut feeling. And I have a good story about that too. It's pretty short. So when I started working at the LA County Arts Commission, they dumped all of the previous year's survey data on my desk. And they said, we just want you to take this data, analyze it, and like write a comprehensive report. And this was data that was collected at a whole bunch of free, community-based, participatory arts programs in neighborhoods across LA County. And these programs were specifically designed to appeal to those people in those neighborhoods based on their ethnic background, their cultural background, et cetera. And the main thing they wanted to know was if their community-based programs were attracting the residents of those neighborhoods for whom the programs were really designed. But the biggest conclusion to come out of the report that I gave to them was that they were collecting data in a way that dramatically skewed the results, because they were using a combination of paper surveys that were administered at the events and web-based emailed surveys collected afterwards from people who had given their email addresses, which seems really logical, right? The more data collection we can have, the better. But because of self-selection, because certain populations are more likely to respond to an emailed survey, they're more likely to have and give their email address. The inclusion of those web surveys made it look like the largest ethnic group in attendance at almost every income level was white. When we actually removed those web-based survey results, just the paper survey data by itself told a very, very different story. And so I presented this to them and they were kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we don't have to email those anymore. That's like, cross out that step next time, right, for next year. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have noticed that if I hadn't, like, just for fun and because I had been unemployed for a while, taken a series of online courses in statistics, got really interested in it, got really interested in data analysis and doing all that stuff. And I guess the point is, like, I've gone through several periods of unemployment and underemployment. And I think the best thing that I did during those times, even when I was really kind of depressed because I didn't have a job, was always to learn a new skill, just always be pursuing something that I was just curious about. And those things have somehow magically sort of come together to inform the work that I do now. And so that's it.
Yeah, and there's so many resources out there now online with whether it's Coursera or like Miss Excel on TikTok or Instagram. Like, there are entire channels on social media that are dedicated to like Excel shortcuts, and it's like I can totally geek out on that stuff. But don't underestimate the power of having that self-initiative to learn those skills, because when you show up to your hiring manager, as a candidate, and they want you to, there's so many programs and so many softwares that you can, but if you just are able to confidently talk about like your ability and curiosity to learn a new skill within that kind of sphere of, Excel or data or anything these days, I think that is very helpful in interview and job search arena, because not everybody has that. They're going to wait until they need it, and don't wait till you need it. Like, just, start now. And that's something you can, and if you come out of school knowing, at least having the concept, here at orchestras, like we use Arts Vision or OPAS, you hear these words, there's all these tutorials you can do. And if you walk in and you say, yeah, I haven't used Arts Vision, but I was watching some videos, I'm like, oh, okay, great. I don't have to like start from zero with you as an applicant. Julia, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, never stop learning. There's always something new out there that you can always use. I mean, I'm constantly reading things, constantly learning new concepts. Um, I mean, I just love to learn. So I'm just that person that naturally gravitates towards that. But that is definitely something that will help you, especially in this field. And also just having the humility to tell yourself that you don't know everything. Not all of us know everything under the face of the earth. It's not possible. And so it's always good to just kind of be willing to learn and be willing to listen. And I think probably one of the other skill sets that I would say going in is that this industry, really learning how to work with other people. And that sounds really super basic, but it's actually really super important in this field. Whether you are working with the musicians, you're working with the music director, you're working as the staff, or you're working with a board, you are having to work with people, even our audience. And there are some not so nice people out there, but then there are some amazing people out there, and each person functions differently. And I think one of the things that I've learned throughout, my career in this industry too, um, is that is trying to always find that win-win situation, because conflicts are going to come up. You're going to have to figure out how to find kind of that middle ground. And being able to have kind of that mediator skill is going to be really important on some of those maybe challenging days, and especially when stress is running high, when you're putting on a concert or whatever. That is definitely something that really can serve you well moving forward. But then also on the flip side of that, never underestimate the power of boundaries. This field, because we work when everyone else is off, because we're a form of entertainment, our concerts are in the evenings, they're on the weekends. We are not working a standard 9 to 5 job in this industry. It can lead to burnout real quickly if you're not careful. Speaking from experience myself and having been in burnout several times. And I'm very much an advocate for take care of yourself first and foremost, because you cannot show up and do your best work if you're not taking care of yourself. But there's also this, I've noticed it in the industry that, we're all passionate about art and music, and we want to do a good job, which is an amazing thing. But we need to be able to also show up and be able to do the job from a place of wellness and wholeness as well. And so if we're showing up depleted because we're answering emails until midnight, and then we're showing up to work really early the next day, or because we just worked a concert and we worked a 12-hour shift, like I did on Sunday, and then I'm back in the office at 9 a.m. the next morning because we had a meeting, and then people are emailing me. I mean, literally too, I think people are mistaking emails as urgent these days. And so also being willing to place boundaries on that too, that, just because you send an email does not mean that someone should respond immediately, and vice versa. And kind of going in with those mindsets. And like I said, like, I'm not saying this as a way to like win a job interview. You don't want to really be like saying these in like the job interview process, but just keep these in mind as you go into the industry, because especially when you're in the entertainment industry, like we are, and we are working really bizarre hours sometimes, the lines can get blurred sometimes. And so that's been a hard lesson for me to have to learn over the years too, because I can be a workaholic and I want to do a good job. But I've realized over the years that at the end of the day, we're not saving lives, we're not first responders, we're not finding a cure for cancer, we're providing entertainment, which is amazing, but it doesn't always constitute an emergency. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as well when you're going into the field, even with any job. I mean, I think this is like kind of a narrative that's been talked about in multiple industries, not just ours these days. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to some questions or just takeaways for our attendees. What has this conversation prompted for you, or what do you wish we would have talked about? In the meantime, if the panelists have an email address they'd be willing to share to continue the conversation, I'd welcome you to drop it in the chat. But yeah, what questions do our attendees have, or just takeaways, comments, observations?
I have a question if no one has a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm curious what AI applications and stuff do y'all use for marketing? Like Canva for creating posts or stuff for eBlast. I'm kind of curious. I keep hearing about a lot of AI stuff like WordTune, all those things. What kind of apps do y'all use?
You can
Go
go.
ahead, Julia. I was just gonna say I do use ChatGPT almost on a daily basis today. Just for like, you know, drafting an email to when you can't find the words, if you have to write a note to a donor whose husband just died and you're just not really sure exactly what to say. I've used it for that, obviously with the big caveat of it's a starting point, right? I don't like cut and paste. It's just like, oh, okay, I can, it gives me some ideas and then I can personalize it from there, stuff like that. We do use Canva for quite a few things, not for our main marketing efforts, but for just posting. I haven't delved into the AI side of Canva yet. Played around a little bit with Dolly too when it came out. Wasn't thrilled with like the quality of the images, especially for our concert marketing. But that's how I use it.
Yeah, I'm also similar. I'm still in the experimental phase with the AI apps that are out there with my copy. Some have been great, some have been not so great. So I'm just kind of still experimenting before I like actually for sure use it for anything. I do use Canva. I use Canva a lot. Actually, it's been way easier. I'm a one-person marketing department. I don't have anyone else. So literally it's way easier for me to go into Canva to design something these days than to go into InDesign, but I do have InDesign skills. So we do use the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite as well. I know that a lot of printers, like when you send something to the printers, prefer InDesign files than Canva. So having the InDesign, the Photoshop skills in the marketing arena are still important. I have an outsourced graphic design team that will do more of the more intricate designs for me through InDesign, but then they send me the raw InDesign file. So if I have to change something in the future, I can do that. So that's also something I use. And then also we have an outsourced PR firm that does a lot of our media relations for us. So I don't know what programs they use, but they have these fancy programs that can alert them whenever the symphony is mentioned in a news story or a magazine or whatever. So there's all these other programs out there as well for that kind of stuff for media relations. But yeah, Canva, I definitely use, experimenting with the AI as we speak, and then just continuing to kind of keep my eyes out there of other things. I also Asana. If you guys have heard of Asana, I use that a lot for, especially in my marketing department, just to keep projects on time and to be able to have internal knowledge of where something stands. So Asana has also been great.
Excellent. Any other questions? Comments or I'm just curious. I mean, I know you, Christian, and I recognize your name, Joanna and Olivia. So great to see you here today. I'm curious to just get, where are you at right now in your path, and what is kind of the next step you're trying to make? Joanna, I see you in the middle of my screen. If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Joanna, and I am about to graduate with my master's in arts administration at Columbia University. So yes, currently in the midst of job searching and applying to jobs, interviewing.
Excellent. Well, you've made 4 new professional friends, so
yes,
please consider us in your network, and would love to walk alongside you to help you get that first step.
Thank you.
Olivia.
Hi, yeah. So I am also about to graduate with my master's in arts management from Carnegie Mellon, and I just accepted a role in operations at the Pittsburgh Symphony. So that's exciting. And while I'm still a student and a baby in terms of career, I'm just trying to soak up as much information and perspective as I can.
Excellent. My heart is always in Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh, but my first 9 years was in operations at the Pittsburgh Symphony. So we'll have to stay connected.
Yeah.
Ashley, I don't know if you want to share with us where you're at and what your path is like these days.
Sure. So my name is Ashley. I'm a recent graduate from Performing Arts Admin at NYU, and I'm just kind of just jumping full in terms of job search and just applying to what I can for the time being. Yeah.
Excellent. And Hannah, I don't know if you're in a place where you can share a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Hannah. I'm also in the same program as Joanna, so graduating in May with a master's in arts administration and looking for jobs, hoping to stay in New York. So yeah, it's a journey, but it was very helpful to hear from everybody today. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Oh, well, we're so excited you're joining us. We're going to gain a lot with you coming into our industry. And so thanks so much for being here today. All right. Well, I think that kind of brings us to a close. I just want to give a huge thank you to our panelists today. Thank you for your time and expertise. We are kind of wrapping up our event season here at Orchestra Careers. We're going to do one more special event in May because I'm partnering with Lemoyne College on the very first ever online advanced certificate in orchestra management. And so our next event in May is actually going to be all about that. And that's going to launch this summer. So I'll also be at the League of American Orchestras conference in Pittsburgh in June. So hope that our paths will cross there or at another industry event. There's some really great events that are out there these days. But you know how to get in touch with me if there's any way I can support you on your path at orchestracareers.com. But it's really an honor to see all of you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.